Taking a road trip through the entire state is by far the best way to see Arizona. So here is southern Arizona and Mexican border, and we flew into Tucson and drove further south to 3 towns, Tubac, Bisbee, and Tombstone. Each one felt like blasts from a different past, 17th, 18th, and early 1900s. Then we spent a day in Tucson, which has a very strong border city multinational culture, and you can feel it in everything, in people and art and food. And then just 15 minutes outside of downtown Tucson, there's absolutely gorgeous Saguaro National Park and an epic desert sunset. Then we drove through the state to see the nature wonders of northern Arizona. Sedona, Antelope Canyon, and the Grand Canyon. Northern Arizona is insanely stunning. So for thousands of years, people lived in where Mexico and Arizona are right now, and that's including Navajo and nomadic Apache Indians. And many civilizations, indigenous civilizations, rose and fell throughout those years. And then in early 1500s, Spanish arrived, and at the time, Aztec Empire was ruling, and of course, Spanish-Aztec War broke out, which kickstarted the colonization of Americas, and but it did take almost 150 years for them to arrive in Arizona. This Tumacacori Mission was established in 1691 by Father Xavier Francisco Kino. He was a Catholic priest and scientist from Spain. He was quite famous and played a huge role in Christianizing Native Americans and he built almost 20 churches and missions throughout the Arizona. But the mission also saw a lot of conflict. Some people obviously hated Kino, and he was on top of the target list, and eventually he was killed. And then for 50 years after that, there was no priest who dared to come to the area, and then the new priest who came 50 years later was also killed. The territory around Tumacacori is beautiful, and here's very pretty trail that takes you to the river. Santa Cruz River. It is actually 184 miles long. It comes down into Sonora, Mexico, and it goes through Mexico back into Arizona and goes for another 70 miles from there. And as you see, it's quite dried up. But during monsoon season, which is from July 4th-ish times until early September, it fills up pretty much. But the walk from the mission to get to the river, there's the most beautiful trail. It's really easy. Interesting fact, to restore and support the wetlands and animals and native plants, Arizona is releasing 1,200 gallons of clean recycled water per minute into Santa Cruz River. Tubac town was founded pretty soon after Tumacacori. Now it is known for unique gift shops and art galleries from local and regional artists. It is also an excellent stop for lunch or dinner if you're up for some nice mix of Mexican and Spanish food. We settled for Elvira's, that is well known in the area for its good food, over-the-top decor, and $1.50 tequila shot with a meal. The history of Tubac started when Spanish came here, because they thought it would be a good place to build a fort because they needed to protect themselves from attacks from Indian tribes. And within 5 years, the village got deserted because attacks were so vicious. In Tubac, they have Presidio State Historic Park, which preserves ruins of oldest Spanish Presidio site in Arizona. And one of the commanders, Juan Bautista de Anza III, he led expedition to California, resulted in founding of San Francisco. I ordered chili relleno. It is so delicious. It's basically pepper coated with egg, and inside there's cheese, and it's kind of all baked with tons of sauce on top. It is absolutely delicious. They really, in this restaurant, they actually take food to a next level. But man, it's like a heart attack with it. It's so good, but there's so much cheese. It's delicious. 2 hours southwest of Tubac, there's mining town Bisbee that doesn't fit any stereotype, and it's just so unexpectedly awesome. It transported us to the late 1800s when people realized that there's a big presence of copper ore in southern Arizona, and people developed a great mining city of the West, Bisbee. They first built the traditional copper queen mine, but in mid-1900s they decided to move towards an open pit mining. From 1950s to 1975, there were blasts every time that we're rocking this 75,000 tons of rocks. And you can only imagine the level of damage it does to the mountains. Eventually, in 1975, they stopped. In 80s and 90s, kids and enthusiasts were entering the pit. They started finding here calcite covered by copper, and they were selling it as Bisbee ice. It is an impressive sight. The pit is 900 feet deep and covers an area of 300 acres. And it is crazy just to think how many millions of tons of materials they had to remove from here. So when they started expanding the pit, they had to move everybody out, and they preserved this one street, Erie Street, as it used to be. And if you see all these storefronts and all these vintage cars, it feels like it's a snapshot in history where we're just standing right now live. Copper Queen Mine was actually the most productive copper mine in the country for many years. You can actually take Copper Queen Mine tour, and they take you deep inside the mountain. They give you helmet and flashlights, so it gives you kind of a full experience. And very often, former miners actually are your tour guide, so you get kind of first-hand knowledge type of experience. Bisbee itself is very charming, very unexpectedly artsy and funky and unique. Paintings and murals are mixed with history here and scattered throughout the town. Copper Queen Post Office actually has an interesting story. So Bisbee is quite hilly, and post office could not deliver mail to the houses. So what they did is they opened about 3,200 mailboxes, and people would come to the post office to pick their mail. And I can only imagine what a community center this was. And it is right now, just as it was 100 years ago. One more town we drove by is Tombstone, Arizona, a place that is stuck in old times of Wild West. And it's also a place where the famous shootout OK Corral happened. 30 shots in 30 seconds. Of course, naturally, they reenacted every day here, and it is a lot of fun, so I'm going to link it in the description. Unfortunately, we got to Tombstone late, and it's actually just past 5 o'clock, but sunsets early nowadays. And meanwhile, at night, you don't see that, but inside, life is bustling in restaurants and theaters, so it's still a lot of fun. Okay, Wild West, also known as American Frontier, and it was west of Mississippi, and it lasted for about 30 years after Civil War. And it was times of lawlessness and wild behavior, and it was often glamorized by Hollywood, but the reality, I would imagine, was probably very harsh. And but Tombstone is fun. It's a lot of fun, and I hope to come back here one day. Final stop of old times, San Xavier Del Bac Mission. It is the oldest European building in the state of Arizona and one of absolutely coolest. San Xavier is actually one of the 20 missions that were built by Kino. The church interior is filled with marvelous original statues and mural paintings. Truly authentic 18th century space. The architect Ignacio Gana built another church in Caborca, Sonora, Mexico, if you ever want to see it. Following Mexican independence from Spain in 1821, San Xavier became part of Mexico, and then in 1854, when they signed U.S. and Mexico signed purchase agreement, then it became part of United States. And of course, in 1912, Arizona joined the Union and became the 48th state of the United States. Next stop could not be more different from the previous one. It transported us from a place of peace to a place of war. We're at the Titan Missile Museum. It's a pretty comprehensive museum about Cold War between USSR and USA. I was growing up in Soviet Union at the time. I was a kid back then, but still, it is so fascinating to see the same events from different perspectives. They do great tours here, definitely worth to see. Arizona has always played an important role in defense and intelligence during Cold War and World War II. Tucson, Arizona. The city that is often underestimated, but really it is because an untrained eye can't see a diamond in the rough. Surrounded by mountains, the presence and influence of harsh but incredibly beautiful nature here is huge. It shaped the ways of life of the city and shaped the people who learned to appreciate the outside and cultivate the inside. We spent some time wandering around Tucson. Given the desert heat in the area, people created these spaces to enjoy. Tucson is a very photogenic and compact city with lots of cool restaurants and lights and murals. So murals actually date back to 30,000 BC that they found some in French caves. And then after that, of course, in ancient Egypt, they found a lot of murals in the tombs. And of course, Italians then later on took it to a next level. And then there was a Mexican muralism art movement that happened that became a base of modern muralism or modern murals. And here in Tucson, people in general started appreciating murals much more. Walls and ceilings don't really have to be plain. But here in Tucson, you're gonna find so many murals. I have a map that can guide you if you're interested. I'm gonna link a map and explanation to every mural for you in the description. Tucson may be a small city, but it is for sure charming and a little quirky. They do have some random stories to tell. This is a Congress Hotel. So here, infamous gangster and FBI most wanted stay, and then the hotel got caught fire. They gave a hefty tip to firemen who became suspicious. So the next day, FBI raided them and arrested. And then the courthouse, this old courthouse that is in downtown, and that's where they were all tried. This was a huge story at the time. He was a crazy man, and I will link the story in the description. Congress Hotel had another guest, and this time a hero, true hero, Vince Zuda. He was a World War II veteran, and in 1965 he came here and became very, very good friend with owners, and he ended up staying here and residing until he died in 2001 in room 221. UNESCO, which is United States National Education and Culture Organization. So UNESCO decided that they're deciding gastronomy cities, and they found 3 in the United States. One was in Houston, San Diego, and Tucson is another one. So here they have 23 miles of Mexican food, and I will link the map in the description, and you can just kind of go from one to another, or you just stay in one and enjoy Mexican food. And meanwhile, we were so hungry, so we ended up sitting in a pub, something in ice cream. I'm gonna also link it in description. It's American food, and I'm so excited, so we're going to check it out. Nature is one of the absolute best attractions of Tucson, and here the world is dominated by Sonoran Desert and its amazing gift, the saguaros. The Cactus Forest Scenic Loop is a stunning 8-mile drive. Saguaros grow pretty slowly, but they store a lot of water and can get up to 50 feet tall. So the park has 2 areas separated by Tucson. The Red Hill Tucson Mountain District, which is west, and then Recon Mountain District in the east. So Tucson Mountain is more of a volcanic rock, while Recon Mountain, it's much wetter area. So there's a little bit of a difference in vegetation. It is incredible how they kind of imitate a human. They even have some old folk stories where they say that humans were turned in saguaros. Now in the Recon Mountain District, they also have a loop, and it is 5 miles of unpaved. They just repaved it, so it's kind of unpaved, repaved loop. Also quite incredible. They do have some petroglyphs in the area, and if you have some time, definitely check it out. But if you don't have time, start with an 8-mile loop in a Tucson mountain area. Final activity of the day, climbing a rock to see the desert sunset. When you come to Arizona, to southern Arizona, and you always have to for sure consider the weather here, and they have extremely hot summers, and the best time is like right now, which is November. Also, they have basically, they always say that here in desert they have 5 seasons, and the 5th season is monsoon season, which starts somewhere around July 4th and ends around Labor Day, somewhere in September. So it's definitely something to watch for. It can get quite dangerous in desert, so always respect the nature. Exploring Tucson gives you a window to understanding people who live in Arizona. The nature here is so extreme and powerful that it takes a special person to live and love it. People who appreciate different kinds of beauty, people who are independent from hustle of the world, because the desert is all about being free and unobstructed. People are tough, smart, and respectful because the nature here will teach you lessons if you're not of these things. Some of the most unique and beautiful places on earth are located in northern Arizona. And it is so amazing how different it is from southern Arizona. Southern Arizona is so personable and you feel like part of it. And northern Arizona is so grand. You feel like a little speck. So 300 million years ago, this area was alternating between being the bottom of the ocean and being a beach because of rise and fall of sea level. And then eventually for 100 million years that was happening, sandstone rocks started developing and depositing. From 200 million years ago to 65 million years ago, dinosaurs were roaming this area, and then after that, the southern Arizona started an uplift, and northern Arizona was faulting. and then for a few more million years there was some volcanic activities, and eventually when Colorado Plateau uplifted and started erosion by wind, rain, and snow melt, so that way eventually it created this Oak Creek Canyon and exposed these incredible rocks formations. Now, right now we're at Red Rocks Crossing Trail. It's about 2-mile trail along the creek. Really not so hard to get here. Anybody can do it. But that view of the mountains reflecting in the water is absolutely incredible. The entire scenic drive to Sedona, from north and south, are sites of their own. Sedona is located just an hour or so north of Phoenix, and you must take Red Rock Scenic Byway. I will link it in the description. It is absolutely incredible. Another amazing site, I call it collaboration between humans and nature, is Chapel of the Holy Cross. Local rancher and sculptor Margaret Brunswick Stodd inspired and commissioned the church. She herself was inspired by newly built Empire State Building of 1932. She and Lloyd Wright, son of Frank Lloyd Wright, tried to build it in Budapest but had to scrap it because World War II has begun. So she built this church here in Sedona. And now, since 1956, the chapel sits on Coconino National Forest land on top, or more like blended into red rocks. It took 18 months and $300,000 to build this chapel. Life in Sedona is pretty tranquil, as long as you can afford living here. The sun, the desert, and the red rocks will take care of the rest. And coupled with great restaurants, art galleries, and shops, life is good here. So around 1900s, 15 homesteading families lived in the area. And one day, in about 1899-ish, Theodore Shelby and Sedona Shelby, husband and wife, moved into this area to live with her brother. And Theodore Shelby was quite an entrepreneur, and he started expanding, and he needed to set up post office for this area. And when he submitted request to Postmaster General in Washington DC, they said, well, you have to come up with a name. So he kept coming up with like Oak Creek this, Oak Creek that, and it kept getting rejected because the names were too long. And eventually somebody suggested, why don't you put your wife's name in here? And he submitted it, and it got accepted. And that's how this beautiful place got this beautiful name. Beautiful Sedona. Before saying goodbye, we stopped at one more place. It only takes a short walk. This is Amitabha Stupa, a sacred place and place of prayer, meditation, and healing for all people. Northern Arizona is truly special place where nature's work is nothing but a stunning wonder. And in Leachy chapter of Navajo Nation near Page, Arizona, right by Utah border, you will find a hidden treasure, a 200,000-year-old Antelope Canyons, upper and lower. The only way to see it is to take a tour, and no videos are allowed, so you have to go and see it for yourself. It is amazing. The canyons were created by powerful rushing waters in kind of like in a blender manner, leaving these wave-like 120 feet tall walls. Sometimes these waters can come without any warning, and they can be extremely dangerous and sweep anything and everything on its way. And as deadly as these storms are, they created this delicate masterpiece of a sculpture. A few years back, I've done a separate video about Antelope Canyon, Horseshoe Bend, and the entire area, so please check it out. For Navajo Nation, especially their elders, this is a sacred place, and at the beginning of each season, they do a prayer ceremony for everyone to be safe here. Actually, Arizona has the greatest percentage of its acreage than any other state in the US that is dedicated to Indian tribal lands. And they do have villages that are more than thousands of years old. And fun fact, Navajo Nation is governed by its own laws and does not necessarily follow Arizona laws. And Arizona does not have daylight savings, while Navajo Nation does. So if in Arizona it's 2 p.m., here is 1 p.m. There's just one more canyon in northern Arizona that we visited, the most grand one of all, the Grand Canyon. The state is seriously jam-packed and an amazing one to get to know. Whenever we go to Grand Canyon, we always stay in Williams, Arizona. It's a small town but with a lot of character. And what I didn't realize, it's 30 degrees in the morning. We were in southern Arizona, right? And it was like, what, 75, 80, and we go up here and it's 30 degrees. Williams is located right on the historic Route 66. Route 66 was about 2,500 miles long, and it was removed completely from transportation system in 1985, and Williams, Arizona was actually the last bypass that was built to remove it, and it's right standing. Everything, lots of little shops are here, and coffee shops and restaurants are on actual Route 66, and I hope one day to do the whole trip, all 2,500 miles. It goes through 3 time zones and it passes through 8 states. It takes about 45 minutes to get to the Grand Canyon from Williams. It is hard to believe that this area 6 million years ago, it used to be flat. And now it's 277 miles long, 18 miles wide, and 1 mile deep. And we spoke to a ranger and he gave us the best advice. Try not to see everything. Just pick a spot and soak it in. To me, it is not even as much about how the Grand Canyon looks, but about how the Grand Canyon feels. The place is like a moment in life that is frozen in time. It is quiet like in a vacuum. You can only hear the wind and take in the depth and breadth and true beauty. It is one of those places where you feel your true place in the universe. Nothing is about you. Everything is about the universe. So if you're up for lectures, they have quite a few. One of my favorite ones is raptors in flight. And did you know, fun fact, raptors, their grip is they can hold about 400 pounds per square inch, while humans can hold about 20. Wow, what a difference. And for condor, their wingspan is about 10 feet. Well, this is it, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. The trip was mind-blowing and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you one day will do it. And please like it. If you liked it, please subscribe and follow on Instagram. Here's my handle, and please sign up for bi-weekly emails. I am writing about all my thoughts and processing and more information, more in-depth information about all the trips within United States that I'm doing. And yeah, once again, all the links and addresses and information is in the description below. And once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.